because their property's gone. And so there's nothing to tax on a house that has blown away. But then, it's like kind of like Cedar Rapids in the flood that they had. I don't know if there's any perfect way, probably there isn't really, of doing the tax thing. But I'll make this point. The reason Iowa sometimes, and all states, don't always do what they say they're going to do. In the case of Iowa, income and sales tax are their main sources of revenue. Those tend to go up and down over economic cycles. Property tax, at least in Iowa here, is relatively stable. And so, for instance, the state said they were going to do a lot more for mental health beginning in 1996-97. Well, that was in a good year. And then a few years later, suddenly, we discovered that they weren't keeping their word. And we had obligations, and so then it kind of falls back on the local community to figure out how to do things. And I don't think it's because they don't want to, it's just because we're on different kinds of cycles of income.
So the mental health budget is 20% of 80 million approximately.
I should be a number there.
Yeah, 75.
It's,
So it's almost $15 million.
I don't know, I don't think it's quite that much, but it's, because some of that includes capital too, that 82 million. So it may be on a lesser number.
Okay.
But the point is, yes, it's a big amount. And the problem with it is the issues don't seem to be getting any less. I mean, the incidence of people needing help on mental illness and all the new drugs that are available have tended to push that cost up because there are treatments, people will take them. Otherwise, then what tends to happen is if we don't pay for the mental health costs, then we'll pay for them in their incarceration because they'll get into trouble, in some other way. So
It's a vicious circle.
it is, yeah. And, one can talk about costs of government. I don't know what it costs to build a mile of Interstate 80 in 1960 or 1980 when 74 was built. My guess is now to replace a mile of that highway would be probably, 4 or 5 times as great. And those are obviously tax supported, so it's hard to see how, taxation makes possible civilization. There wouldn't be the cathedrals, or the Michelangelo's Pietà, or many of the great works of art or great buildings if it weren't that, in one case, the church or the government or whatever didn't tax for them. And I think we don't look at that now. We're looking not at Michelangelo creating a Pietà, but, can we keep streets in good repair? Can we, not have issues of people, with mental health, or can we feed the people that need help?
Larry, I think most people are happy to pay their fair share for somewhat of a social safety net out there, and for services, streets, sewers, fire, judiciary, everything that this county is in charge of. I think the nuance comes in is that when you look at I was at the meeting where the county administrator presented the annual budget, the big PowerPoint, and you had there's like 50 people in the room, And I remember hearing that this county administrator was pleased that it was I think it was a 2.6% increase in the budget, or maybe it was a $2.6 million increase, and whatever the percentage was, I can't remember. And that was like looked upon as favorable, like, wow, we only increased this much. And whereas most people in the last 2 years, this is 2011, the last 2 years have had to reduce their expenses dramatically to survive. And when you see that disparity of government, not actually tightening their belt, and I know that the finger gets pointed to the unions quite often, and I'm not here to bait you about unions, but I see that that's what's going on, and I ask myself, what other sector has the ability to coercively take wealth from another entity to pay another entity? I can't go do that. I can't coercively go take money from my neighbor because I want to grow my budget, but government can. And for many of us, that's a real problem. And I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
My first thought is many of the expenses of government go up in economically difficult times. The demands made on whether it's mental health services or various kinds of community services go up. The second thing is, I would say, streets don't stop deteriorating. Gasoline, there are many costs that are outside of our control. I've thought quite a bit about this. The costs of my family versus what I see in government. I mean, I'm aware of what you're saying, and how people look at that. But I also become aware that it's almost a paradox about government and what it has to do in a modern, highly technical civilization to keep the system operating smoothly. And I don't have, for instance, I take 2 newspapers. Well, I don't have to take, I take, Quad City Times because I need to know who's dying and all that kind of thing, that's kind of normal. But I take another newspaper, or I have cable TV or satellite TV, and I could get by with an antenna on my house, and just pick up the 3 local channels. I got a car, except I got a used one this time. I decided not to spend so much money. Low mileage car instead of a new. I mean, I could save a little money there. But in government, I can't see that how it goes down if we want to maintain the level of quality of life and movement that we have grown accustomed in the last 50 years.
Have salaries gone up in Scott County?
Yes, they go up, I would say an average of, well, it varies a little bit, maybe between 2 and 3% a year.
I'm a federal retiree and I haven't had a raise in 2 years. Cost of living raise in 2 years. The same thing for Social Security recipients too.
Yeah,
my health insurance goes up, so my net is less for the last 2 years.
We try to seek out, and I think Dee Bremer is excellent at this. She likes to turn over rocks, I think, and see what's there. But for instance, and Todd knows this, we became self-insured this year to a savings of $500,000. Well, how long? What about next year and the next year? Eventually, that run may run out. Or instead of just renewing some of our contracts that we had for various services, for instance, the county's auditing service, even though I think some of the staff did not want to, we're very happy with our auditors, It was comfortable having them come in each year and they knew what to look for and so forth. But we saved some thousands of dollars by getting a new auditor. I mean, a new, people to look at the books, and they raise new questions, they look at them differently. And that was good to do, because there were issues pointed out that maybe our current auditors would not have pointed out. So there, it's kind of like, as I see it, finding these niches where savings can be made. On the union thing, one of the things that Iowa, and it may be national for all I know, is that they look at comparables, or those that do contracts look at comparables. What is Cedar Rapids paying its police? What is Des Moines paying its policemen? What is Peoria? I mean, what are they paying? Well, if so-and-so's paying 2% and 2% and 2%, well, then, then we end up kind of paying 2% too, and we can't say, no, we can't afford it, because we're below the taxing limit that we have, well below it. I mean,
But isn't that a little bit like the Mutual Admiration Society, when
That's right.
all the counties decide to look at each other about their union
But
raises?
that's that's kind of the
It's the way it
system
is.
has grown for the last probably 50 years.
And I want to throw out a serious hypothetical to you, Larry, and I appreciate you taking the time to look at this stuff. What are the ramifications if a county government said, we're not going to abide by those raises? The people that live in Scott County haven't had raises for years? Sorry. Yes, you actually, Mr. and Mrs. County employee, you should be thankful that you even have a job with benefits. Some people don't have jobs. We're going to leave you flat for the next 2 years. What would be the ramifications?
The ramifications is that we would not be upheld.
By whom?
There's a board, or it depends on what's happening, if it's an arbitration board or whatever, but we would not be upheld. And that's why every year, and these are some of the things in closed sessions that we deal with. Okay, we went in this year and we said 0, because we think, the economy being what it is, it's just not, we need to respect that.
So that's not part of the home rule, part of it?
So
So anyway, they come back and around the state, these various, or counties comparable size. I don't know what Peoria County's called, but, and Lynn County in Iowa is the other one, and maybe Sioux City.
But a ruling comes from some arbitrary
Yes.
body, right?
Yes, and it does, and we're told, okay, you can do this if you want to. You want to take 2%, but if the arbitrator, whoever it is, has to choose between you and 0 and something else, they're not going to choose that. They're going to give what the...
But in all seriousness, Larry, at the end of the day, the Board of Supervisors votes on the approval of the budget.
That's right.
They can't pay the paychecks, whether it's 0 or 2%, until you guys approve the budget, correct? Fiscally speaking. So if you hold the line and say, we're not passing the budget, what are the real world ramifications?
We have to pass it by March 15th.
And if you don't? And what if you pass it at 0? Seriously, what if you say, look, we don't care what your little piece of paper says at the state, this is what we can afford.
But they would say, you're a rich county, you're only using half of your allowable tax levy.
They can say whatever they want, they being whoever they are.
Well, they are.
But what would happen if you held the line? I'm trying to get you to hypothetically think about physically what would happen. What would be the end game?
Well, we'd be taken to court.
And then the court would...
they would rule in favor of...
Okay. And then what if you said...
Amount.
We don't care what the court said. Okay.
And it's not good.
Okay. I just want to try and get through the thread of exactly what it takes for an elected official to hold the line on that budget that only goes up, it's at $82 million. It just blows my mind how we can't ratchet it down some. Even though we have great savings, the self-insurance thing was phenomenal. $500,000 in health insurance savings should be totally lauded for that. I think that's fabulous. But even with that, it really boggles the mind.
Well, I don't know, first of all, there is one could probably argue, one could probably go on about this indefinitely. And I'm now 30 years into the kind of elected office of one kind. You know, the city budget of Davenport in 1980, FY 80-81 would have been my first budget, was, I don't know, probably 50 million. Now it's, I think, 100.
Cities is over 200 million.
200, see, and the city isn't that much bigger. Locust is still Locust Street. You know, a park, I mean, yes, you have Duck Creek bike path, but you know.
We know the symptoms and we know the causes, but we don't know the cure.
Then you factor in inflation, and my guess is that's going to absorb 50 or 60% of that increase. And I just, unless there is a entirely different public willingness to do without some of things that they have or have been accustomed to, I think it's going to be hard for any level of government to go, I'll say, backwards in time. Simply because, you know, when I grew up, gas was 30 cents a gallon. Now it's $3.69. I mean, that's a 10 or 12-fold increase. And we're not going back to 30-cent gallon gas. And I think that's true with so many things. In terms of, say, mental health, there were no. People kept their mentally ill children or mentally challenged children at home, you know, and so there was no government cost. And now, you know, there's a handicap development center, there's Bear Fringe, there are all these expensive psychotropic drugs, all of which have kind of created a world in which expectations are very high. And I understand what you're saying, and I don't disagree with you at all in that sense that somehow I wish it could change, but I don't know if that it's possible anywhere without people deciding as kind of a group that we are willing to do something. Now, I know there are counties in South Dakota that are as their blacktop roads deteriorate, they are digging them up, taking off the blacktop and sending them back to gravel again. You know, so, and I think we'd have to look at that kind of thing on a whole raft of issues, whether we are willing, with our nice cars and all the other things we have that are nice.
I'm not so sure that the roads are the real culprit, though. I mean, how much is the pension fund for our former employees in the county? I mean, I don't know that number off the top of my head, but I got to imagine.
For police and fire, it is for cities, I think more so than for counties. It's a major burden, and that is a hard thing to sort out, and without getting into some really, and it's above kind of it would have to be done at a level beyond what we're county level. But I mean, Wisconsin got into that, this last spring, and I don't know if that's all sorted out yet. But anyway, well,
I do have some technical questions if you're open to them.
I'll try.
If you guys don't mind. Yeah, you know.
I'd like to go through this.
Go ahead, go through
eventually.
it. Let's go through it. Go through what you have. Larry.
You may have some other questions too. Scott County only has physical jurisdiction over unincorporated Scott County. The city limits of Princeton. Princeton is the boss. LeClaire, Dixon, Davenport. So we have, in terms of physical jurisdiction, the unincorporated area. However, we have jurisdiction over all 166,000 people of the county in a number of other areas which are listed on the other sheet. Some other things about county government that are distinct from Davenport, but I think probably from any community. And this, I mean, you could look at this and argue, all of us are elected countywide. Whereas in Davenport, there are wards. City's divided into 8 wards, and there are 2 at large, whereas all 5 of us are at large. At one point in, 2005 or 6, 4 of us lived east of Jersey Ridge in Davenport. Now, Jim Hancock and I live east of Jersey Ridge. Carol Earnhardt lives east of Eastern in North Davenport. So 3 of us live east of Eastern. Tom Sunderbrook lives on West Hayes in West Davenport, and Bill Cusack lives out in the county. Now, Muscatine County elects their supervisors from districts. So that, and I don't know how long, maybe it's always been that way in Scott County, I don't know, but we are all elected at large. So actually, the interesting thing is, if I were to run for political office, the next office in terms of population would be to run for Congress. Because we have to run in an area of 166,000 people. And the congressman runs about 700,000. But there isn't a larger area in this part of the state, in terms of population. Another difference between city and county, there are 10 aldermen and a mayor. The mayor's elected separately, and as the chief executive officer, we have 5 supervisors, and the supervisors select the chair, so people don't vote specifically on the chairman of the board as you would vote for the mayor of Eldridge or the mayor of Davenport or whatever. And we have 5 elected department heads. And cities do not have elected department heads. All department heads in Davenport are under the mayor and council. So we have 10 people, just like Davenport,
What would be an example of an elected department head?
the county treasurer,
Oh, I see, yeah.
county
Duh.
auditor,
Gotcha.
county recorder.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about like planning and zoning and stuff like that.
And we
yeah.
have then a set of appointed department heads. All city department heads, Davenport department heads are appointed, but we have 5 elected. Now, another thing that makes Scott County unique, and I think gives us and I know it does because I've been, talked to people from other counties. We are the only county in Iowa that has an administrator.
Really?
Yeah. And now I think other counties have someone that acts as that, but they, for what political reasons or whatever, don't call them that. Because you can't have, we have 400 plus employees. You can't have 5 people, and I was a school teacher, Hancock ran a restaurant. Tom Sunderbrook was a principal at Assumption. Carol Earnhardt, homemaker. Bill Cusack, well, he was a county minister, but I don't know what he did before that. But you just can't come in and do an $80 million budget.
But one person can.
If they're trained in it, they can help focus your energy and attention on things. And we tell that person what to do. She can't really, Dee Bremer can't do anything really without our authority, because we have the authority. If we say we want a 15% fund balance, which we have, then that's her job, to get that fund balance, these 5 elected department heads and all the other department heads, and call them together and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and you're not going to get any paper this year. You're going to use up the paper you have, or whatever, because we're going to do that. So all of her authority comes from us, and even though these are elected department heads, they still report to her because they know that we are the final authority and have given her, and she has the expertise and knowledge to pull that stuff together.
While we're on the subject of administrator, Larry, is there a reason why the county administrator's salary is not published?
Oh, it is. Oh, it's got to be. It's $140,000.
Okay.
That would have to be.
Okay, well, the research we've done, when we looked up the salaries, it was not available. It said confidential, and it was part of a confidential contract. So if you could look into that and confirm that,
Well,
that'd be fabulous.
I don't know.
I wouldn't make that up. I mean, I've seen the document, and that's good to know that you feel that it should be published. I think that's important.
Oh, I just can't even imagine that it isn't. It's required by law. All our salary, my salary is published. I mean, it's
Okay.
part of.
Good. Well, then I hope I'm wrong. The document I saw said it was confidential. So we'll revisit that.
I mean, Decker Plains would be. I think his is maybe 160. I think Craig Malin's is higher yet than that.
I'm not saying they're not worth it. I just thought it interesting that they weren't published.
I can't
So,
answer that.
okay.
I just assumed when they printed salaries in the paper, everyone's was printed.
Well, I'll look to be proven wrong.
And I think it's been, I'm digressing now, but when we go to county, Iowa State Association of County, to me, it's just really apparent that we are so far ahead in our, I don't quite, you have to take the phrase as somehow. We're ahead of our thinking. They have, for instance, seminars for some of these small, counties. Well, we did that 2 years ago, or something like that, because someone with the expertise of a Dee Bremer or Ray Weirson before him or Glenn Erickson, I mean, they see trends and they see possibilities that are coming down the line that we can maybe take advantage of, or if it's a problem, that we can steer clear of it, before it actually gets to us. So, and of course, maybe running a county of 15 or 20,000 is a little different, but I still think Eldridge has an administrator. LeClaire has an administrator. I mean, even very small towns of just 1,000, 2,000 people, need someone to kind of herd this group of citizens, to work together to have a common goal, or something like that. It's not that the administrator makes a decision. It's that the administrator's job is to help his city council, and mayor come together. What do you want this community to be? What do you want it to look like? Where do you want it to grow? What's your top priority? What's the second thing you want to do? And then they decide, and then it's his job or her job to get that done. If they say, well, I'm going to spend X number of dollars, well, that's the number of dollars they're going to spend. And
Larry, how many hours a month would you say a county supervisor spends doing the business of the county, approximately?
we've been asked that there a couple of years ago. It varies so much.
I'm sure. Low end and high end. When it's a low season and a high
Last week
season.
I had only one meeting. I almost felt like I was unemployed. And it cycles. I think 3 or 4 weeks ago, we had 2 or 3 things going on every day. And it just moves up and down. And some of us have special assignments. I'm on Bi-State Regional Commission. I'm on, and have been chair of the 7th Judicial District Department of Corrections for a couple of years. I'm kind of the point person on the Council for Passenger Rail. Those are the 3 I can think of right now. But others then do, depending on their interests, do other things. There was a meeting, for instance, out in Eldridge today on that power line that's coming through, you know what I mean, that's coming through Scott
Clean
County.
line?
That green line? Yeah. Clean line. Clean line. And I didn't go to that, but I'm pretty sure that Bill Cusack and Carol Earnhardt went. Yesterday, Bill Cusack and I went to the Governor Branstad thing, but the other 3 didn't. So it kind of varies. And Jim Hancock works part-time, and so sometimes he can or cannot go. And then it's Tom Sunderbrook, chairman's job, to make sure we are where we're supposed to be, you know, that someone is representing the county, or at least getting the information.
What would you say, it's 20 hours a week? 40 hours a
No,
week?
not 40.
Okay.
It's, I would say for me, it's between 10 and 20, and some weeks maybe 30.
So 10 to 30, depending on
10
it.
to 30.
Okay.
And the chairman, it's considerably more time.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, he went to Washington a month or 2 ago on arsenal business.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's one of his, I mean, that's something he's a part of, is the arsenal task force, to make sure that you have, you know, that remains viable and is not subject to crack. When I was chairman in 2005 and 6, that was the big issue, and the arsenal was at that time. And I went to St. Louis and testified and sat beside Governor Blagojevich. That was the high point of it was pretty exciting.
Different topic. Do you have any insight into why there is no public business on the agendas during the supervisor meetings, whether the committee of the whole or the regular board meeting?
Part of it is the old software we're using. Now, I know you could say that's probably not an excuse, but it seems like it is set up in a certain way. I've asked that question even way back when I came on the board, because I came from the city council, where we have public with business, and I think there's going to be an effort to do that. Sometimes we've not had that much interest, or if there has been interest, you know, it's rather informal, you know, yeah, get up, you know, sure, get up. Mrs. Bell comes in, she's 80 years old, well, you know, come on up, we'll, you know what, we'll just listen to you right here now, and we'll just, won't deal with the agenda, you know, until you've had your say. I think that has tended to be kind of the way it has worked. I guess that's about all I can say, and I don't disagree with that. There needs to be maybe a little bit of more formality.
So the software, help me out with what you mean by that.
Well, it's a very old software that the agendas are developed by. You've run into some issues with it, I know from what you've said, and that's part of our whole new IT plan, is to redevelop that and make it a better, make it fit.
And I mean, and with all due respect, we just got done talking about how the city administrator needs to, you know, do what you ask her to do. If the will of the county board was to say we need public with business on the agenda, make it happen within 2 weeks or 6 weeks, why would that? I mean, that doesn't seem like a big, tall order compared to the other challenges that have been facing the county, like saving $500,000 in self-insurance. That's a big deal, you know. So I would hope that would be a soon to be realized result.
Yes.
Do you have any insight into why the board meetings are not videotaped or audio taped? Because it's my understanding that the room itself, that it's very modern and it's wired for sound, and during your closed sessions, you guys actually turn on an audio recording so that there is a actual recording of your closed session. Would it not be beneficial to the public to have the proceedings twice a week, whatever they are, to be recorded?
I have to be diplomatic in the answer to that.
Okay.
Board members have different perspectives on that. I came back one year from a NACO thing saying, we can get this whole package where we can broadcast the board meeting, et cetera. And it just